Welcome back, everyone, to the weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast. We're on a United show today, Devil's Advocate. And this morning, here in this lovely, fine Tuesday morning, I am joined by Norwegian journalist for VGTV, Arilas Ould-Sadda. So we are here today to talk about all things Manchester United here this morning. And so we will be chatting about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's time at Manchester United. We will also be talking about Haalands' early development under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We're going to be talking about Manchester United's season so far and the recent game against West Brom on the weekend and much more. So there's a lot to talk about here this morning. So Arilas, for yourself, you're recently covering Manchester United for VGTV. So like you've been doing journalism and working in the media for quite a long time. So for yourself, kind of what led you originally to go into the media in the world of journalism and kind of cover football?
Listen, I've always been a big football fan since I was a young boy, and I've been a journalism fan as well. I grew up going to France every summer and always reading the newspaper L'Équipe in the summer. Just very fascinated by both the football, but also the transfer stories in the summer, the coverage of football and everything, especially in newspapers. So that's why in Norway we have this big sports newspaper called it's a national newspaper called VG, which have the best sports section, and I remember always picking that up, reading that when I was a kid. So then it was natural for me to go into journalism. When I grew up, I started writing for some websites and everything, and then quite early, I was 19 when I got the chance at VG, and I've been there since, just working myself up. And when it comes to Manchester United, I moved to Manchester actually when Ole got the job, because we needed some more extensive coverage of the club, of course, when there was a Norwegian manager. So that's why I moved to Manchester, and I lived there for, I guess, 15 months from December 2018 until the coronavirus came in and stopped the football, and I moved back to Norway. So let's see if I go back. I think I'll be back in Manchester as soon as it's possible to travel, and as soon as it's worth it when it comes to access and stuff like that.
Yeah, like I suppose, like especially with the coronavirus pandemic, it's kind of thrown things up in the air in terms of the world of football. In terms, obviously, fans coming to stadiums, broadcasting isn't the same as it was, 12 months ago. In terms of people come to the stadium, and kind of content wise, it's a lot different than it was 12 months ago. Then obviously, like the whole match day experience for the players is probably a lot different too. In terms of the fan interaction, in terms of getting that extra gear. In terms of their overall football performance. And then for yourself, obviously, it's a lot of change in a 12-month time frame as well, because you went to Manchester when Ollie got the job, and you're doing a lot of work there. And again, you've moved back home now to Norway, so it's a bit of another change as well for yourself in the space of 12 months.
Yeah, it's a big change, but. Fortunately, the clubs have been very good at adapting when it comes to media access through Zoom calls and video and everything. So that's why, for example, on Friday, I spoke to Ole for 15, 20 minutes, and that was on a Zoom call. So that in some ways the access has become easier for especially, I guess, foreign journalists, because we don't need to be we don't need to be there in order to get an interview. So for us, it's sometimes it's quite practical, but I wouldn't ever want to change the way it was with the way it is, of course. And I really miss going to games with fans and everything. And I just remember, because I was at Old Trafford for every single home game for 1.5 years, and at the end it becomes quite a routine, but I really miss it now, because it's the atmosphere is just it's what makes football great. Of course, it's the fans, so it's not the same without it. And I see that when I follow football now, it's not the same at all when you watch a game at TV on TV either, because you don't have the same energy, the same adrenaline, and the same excitement. So you don't see how much it really means to people. So we need to, yeah, we just need to hope that everything's going to be back to normal in not too much of a long time.
Yeah, and even when you say that in terms of like match day experience, like looking when I watch the matches on television now, I don't choose to watch with the fan noise because it's not the same. I know the fans aren't there. It's not the same. I actually listen to it now with no stadium noise because I suppose playing football myself, it's kind of good to hear what the players are saying, hearing the manager shouting, those little things like that. To kind of see, in terms of from a communication point of view, I like to watch with the no stadium sound. Probably just to see kind of the tactical part, to hear kind of certain instructions been shouted and kind of hearing if the players are communicating. I think that's just for me from kind of a player's perspective. Playing myself, I like to listen to the games with the no stadium sound.
Yeah, I agree, and that's interesting. It's interesting, but it's a small advantage in a big disadvantage, because we would all love to have the fans back, of course.
Yeah, 100%. In terms of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's tenure, like we touched on it, that you were covering him for 15 months before the coronavirus pandemic happened. For yourself, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer took over an interim charge in December 2018, then got the manager job permanently in March 2019. How would you assess Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's term as Manchester United manager from the point he's taken the job on an interim basis up till now?
I would say he's exceeded expectations, because I told Ole that when I interviewed him on Friday, is that you don't longer feel like there is a crisis around the next corner, and it used to be that way for a very long time. Used to be that way before he took over, and it used to be that way for the first year and a half. And as he said, the first 6 months was from game to game what they were going to do. There wasn't a red thread in the way they worked. They didn't have a style. They didn't have a philosophy that was implemented, and it was a huge job to do. So I'm quite impressed with the way he's turned things around a bit. I know there haven't been any finals yet. I know there haven't been any titles yet, and they've lost some important games in semi-finals and against Leipzig and everything. But at the same time, it's impressive to bring back that, not only that stability and on the pitch, even though the results haven't been fantastic lately. You have a feeling that they're not going to embarrass themselves. It's not going to be they're not a laughing stock anymore, and they actually were for a couple of years there. So I think you see a good development when it comes to the cohesion off the pitch as well, with the way the squad is built. Even though they still lack some pieces in the puzzle, I think there's it seems to be a clear plan behind what they're doing and what direction they're going in. And you see young players getting the chance. You see as well players coming into the club. I remember during Moyes' time, Mourinho's time, Van Gaal's time, every single time you saw a signing to Manchester United, pretty much everyone became a worse version of themselves at Man United than what we'd seen before. And now I think it's the opposite. You see Bruno Fernandes coming in, and he's just exploded. And you see a lot of other signings that have been very successful. Van Bissaka was a good signing. He's really made that right back position his. I think Harry Maguire was even though he's been criticized, I think that was a very good signing as well. I think you can say that about many. So you have signings that have been successful, and you have also players that have been that haven't found their place before Solskjaer came in, and he's managed to put them into a role, give them confidence to really take big steps, like Scott McTominay, Fred as well, and the way he's treated Pogba as well is impressive. I think when you see where he was after the Leipzig game, before the Leipzig game, when Mino Raiola basically put an end to his Man United career, and then he's just found his rebirth is I think Ole deserves a big amount of credit for that, because he's made him train hard. He's much better trained now, and his mentality is completely different. So the most important thing I would say is that he's been able to have everyone on board in such a big, star-studded squad full of egos. He's managed to bring everyone with him for a long time. It doesn't seem like there are many unhappy players in the squad. He's gotten rid of potential negative vibes in the squad with Romelu Lukaku or Alexis Sanchez or maybe even Jesse Lingard. I don't know, but players that didn't really accept having to play a secondary role in the squad. So I think there's much great credit to be given to Ole. Of course, the results haven't been fantastic, but he's exceeded expectations this season. He had a good season when it came to the league table last year. So I would say he seems to be closer to a new contract than to get fired right now, and that's quite impressive when you see how many times it seemed like he was hanging on the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, I think when you've perfectly summed it up in terms of Ollie's tenure. Like when you consider the point he went from taking over in December 2018 up until now, there's so many different, like, you can actually break up his tenure in so many different parts. You can look at his time as interim manager when he went on that fantastic run of results in the first 3 months, beating PSG in the Champions League, going 12 unbeaten in the league, and then that was a fantastic run. Then you could look at, obviously he got the job on the permanent basis, and then you go from March to September. Some results did kind of fall off, but at the same time, like, again, that wasn't his squad. That squad wasn't used to playing a high tempo of football for 2 years under Jose Mourinho, and Ollie came in mid-season and changed the style of play. I think people have to remember that as well when he first came in. United went from a 4-2-3-1 team under Jose Mourinho to 4-3-3. I remember Ollie's midfield was Matic, Ander Herrera, Paul Pogba, and he had that team playing a lot higher up the pitch. Marcus Rashford got a more advanced role as a striker that season when Ollie came in. Seen even Martial, he's seen his emergence back in the team, especially after the year before Alexis Sanchez was signed and Martial's development was stalled. So I think when Ollie first came in, he really solved the problem in terms of getting the best out of United's attacking players. Then you look at his first full season as Manchester United manager. We finished top 4. We were 14 points away from Leicester City in the league. I think people have to remember that. Ollie clawed back a 14-point lead. He done a fantastic job in bringing in young players such as Brandon Williams and Mason Greenwood, and bringing in other young players within the squad. He's been personally responsible for clearing out a lot of Manchester United's deadwood at the time. As you've mentioned, Romelu Lukaku, Alexis Sanchez, Jesse Lingard's gone on loan now this season to West Ham. But you look at other players, he throws out the likes of the Marcus Rojos, the world, Marwan Fellaini's, players who didn't have the Manchester United DNA. Ollie came in, identified that, and moved them players on when needs be. And he done a fantastic job with that. Then you look at, we brought in players with winning mentalities, such as Bruno Fernandes, such as Edison Cavani. He's brought in players like Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who was much needed at a specialist right-back position, because since Raphael left it in 2015, Manchester United didn't have a specialist right-back. We were shoehorning Antonio Valencia and Ashley Young into the right-back position when they were wingers. So I think Ollie done well in terms of identifying what he needed at that time. I think one thing we need to touch on is Luke Shaw in terms of Ollie's reign. I think Ollie's been personally responsible for seeing the rise of Luke Shaw in these last 18 months. When Luke Shaw came back from his leg break, he had Jose Mourinho as a manager. And in terms of rebuilding Shaw's confidence, I don't think Jose Mourinho was probably the right man to wrap an arm around Luke Shaw and let him know that like he's his main man. Mourinho was a bit hard from him coming back from a traumatic leg break. But when you see Ollie come in and you see what Ollie's done in the last 18 months to 2 years in terms of the development of Luke Shaw, like arguably now Luke Shaw is the best left back in the Premiership along with Andy Robertson right now. When you look at that, that's absolutely tremendous when you consider he was on the verge probably of being sold by Manchester United in terms of being surplus to requirements, Luke Shaw. So I think Ollie's been integral in terms of the development of Shaw. And then when you look at players such as I mentioned, Mason Greenwood, Ollie's been integral in terms of bringing him through. And he looks like he's going to be Manchester United's future number 9 in years to come. Now, obviously, there's another number 9 that we're going to talk about later on in the show that I hope Manchester United sign. But like in terms of Greenwood, he's been integral in his development. But then you look at there's other little things around the club in terms of the culture. He's adapting to the Manchester United way. He wants to play attacking football, and he's adapting like kind of morals around the club that we didn't have post Sir Alex Ferguson. Now, people will talk about flaws he may have, but like people have to remember at the end of the day, this is his first crack at a top job. And I think when you get a promotion in any job or when you move on to a bigger job in the world, you're always going to develop into the role. I think that's very, very important. Perspective is very, very important. And I think with Ollie, he is kind of learning on the job. And you see as the months going on, he's getting stronger. He's getting more flexible. He's getting, tactically, he's getting a lot better. And I think, as you said, like people have been saying he's on the verge of getting sacked and stuff like that. I think that's so off the mark. I think, if anything, we're probably going to see a new contract because season on season, there's improvement. Now, obviously, this season, we're second in the league. We're we're a few points off Manchester City. We're still in the Europa League at the moment. We have a chance to win that. We're still in the FA Cup. We've got to another semi-final this season. So when you really consider his overall tenure, you have to say it's been gradual improvement, season on season. And if Manchester United can finish second this season, maybe pick up a trophy, that has to be considered progress. Because last season, we finished third, probably by the skin of our teeth, let's be honest. We were 14 points behind Leicester and we wrapped it up on the final day. We made it hard for ourselves. But at the end of the day, we finished third and that was progress on the following season. So, like, in my opinion, if we finish second and then we go on to win a trophy like an FA Cup and the Europa League this season, I think that can be considered progress under Ollie. And then next season, we can maybe have a big transfer window this summer and then maybe make a title challenge next season.
Definitely, yeah. I think that's the metaphor that Ole used when speaking about it. Was you have to use primer first when you're going to paint a house, and then you have to do it layer by layer, and you can't mix too many colors because then it turns out wrong in the end. So you have to be consistent, and you have to paint the house layer by layer, and in the end, it's going to be the color that you want. And it's a metaphor for the way he's working. Of course, everyone wants to work that way, but it seems like there is a cohesion and a thought and good plan behind the way they're doing things.
Yeah, and I think what the great thing about it is that he seems to have a plan in terms of youth development. Like you've seen now in recent weeks, we've seen new contracts for Solskjaer. Though Hannibal is playing absolutely fantastic, he's brought Amad Diallo into the fold now as well within the first team squad. So in terms of Manchester United's youth development, he seems to be having an eye over that. Obviously, Nicky Butt's doing a fantastic job there as well in terms of the whole background in Manchester United's youth academy. I think they're doing a great job in terms of kind of reinvigorating Manchester United's vision in terms of our youth development. But I think with Ollie kind of having plans to bring them players through, I've no doubt if he stays there that we're going to see a lot more young players come through, and we're going to see a lot more kind of chances being given that weren't given post Sir Alex. Like Alex Ferguson always gave young players a chance to shine. And then under Moyes, yes, we did see Adnan Januzaj come through. Under Van Gaal, we kind of seen Rashford, Lingard come through, but under Jose Mourinho, we seen absolutely no one come through. Only Scott McTominay came through under Jose. That was the only kind of youth player that kind of came through under Mourinho. So I think like Ollie's doing so many right things that people aren't noticing in terms of youth development, in terms of getting players out, in terms of getting squad morale up there. And I think that's very, very important if you want to be successful. And again, as we said, it's a gradual process. We're going to see, I believe we're going to see a lot more improvement as kind of the months go on. In terms of our season, Arilas, currently now second in the league, still in the Europa League. Big game this Thursday against Real Sociedad in Europa League. Recently knocked Liverpool out of the FA Cup, and looks like we have a tough FA Cup away game against Leicester City. In terms of expectations Manchester United fans can have for the rest of the season, what do you think can be a realistic expectation as fans? Is it maybe a trophy and kind of cementing second in the league?
Yeah, I would say that I wouldn't expect winning the league, mainly because Man City is so good, so good. Yeah. So they seem out of reach, not just because of the amount of points they have, but just because of the way they play. They seem so good, so solid, so consistent, so inventive. So I wouldn't expect to catch Man City. I think they're going to win the league quite comfortably. But I would expect the title, actually, the FA Cup or the Europa League, along with cementing that second place should be an objective, of course, when you are ahead of Liverpool like they are right now. So I would say that, yes, definitely. I think they could go all the way in both those tournaments. I don't think they will win both, because it's hard to keep up the intensity in three tournaments, especially now with the COVID. So I don't think we're going to see many teams winning all tournaments like that. But I think a realistic aim would be to build on last season by winning, by increasing the table finish, and then in the league, and then winning a trophy would definitely symbolize the progress that has been made under Ole and this last year and these last 2 years.
Yeah, I think win the trophy this season would definitely kind of symbolize progress, especially I think when you look at league position. If we can continue that improved league position this season, I think that'd be great. If we can maybe cement that and maybe finish a couple of points ahead of the third and fourth place in the Champions League places, I think that would show progress. I think especially a trophy, whether it's the FA Cup or the Europa League, preferably for me, I'd like to see the win the Europa League, but if I had to make a choice, I'd probably take the league position and an FA Cup, because if you make a long stab at the Europa League, the only thing that happens is later on the season playing Thursday, Sunday, I think that could be a problem though later on the season, depending on how in-squad management is used, because we all know the effects of Thursday, Sunday. We've seen it down the years. Teams have been in title races, they've been in Champions League races, and you've kind of seen a drop in form. This just hasn't happened to Manchester United. This happened to Tottenham. That's happened to Chelsea, Arsenal. We've seen them teams who've played in the Europa League in the kind of last 5-6 years. When they get to the latter stages of it, whether it's in March or February, you do see a drop off in performance in the league. So I think, yeah, absolutely for me, a stab at a trophy and the Europa League. And the top four, finishing second and cementing that. I think that would be, for me, it would definitely be classed as a successful season. In terms, obviously, Ollie's done a fantastic job at Manchester United. So kind of moving away from United at the moment. Ollie was previously at Molde in Norway before he was with Manchester United. He developed one of the best strikers in the world. We might know him. His name is Erling Haaland. What I like to call Erling Haaland is the real life version of a cheat code. That's what Erling Haaland would be. Is the real life version of a cheat code in the game of football. But for you, in terms of looking at kind of how Ollie managed Erling Haaland in his early years, do you think maybe Ollie was very important to the overall development of Erling Haaland kind of early on in his career at Molde?
100%, yeah, 100%. He's been one of the most important, influential coaches in Erling's career. He said that himself. as well, and there's no doubt that he's been very important. I remember speaking to Erling at Anfield when he came in and scored in the Champions League for RB Salzburg, and he said that that Ole has taught him some of that thinking behind the sitting on the bench, analyzing the game, and seeing for yourself how you can go in, make an impact, try to identify the weak points in the opponent, and then just go in and punish them. And that's exactly what he did in that game. And I know he's learned so much from Ole. I remember he was in a bad spell in the first half of the season in 2018. He scored 2 goals in 12 games, and then Solskjaer had a chat with him on the training pitch at Molde the day before an away game against Brann in Norway, which is a big league game in Norway. And then they traveled to Bergen, played against Brann. He scored 4 goals in 21 minutes, and then his career just took off. And I think that I don't know exactly what was said between Ole and Erling, but I know that it was very important, and that just gave him some kind of. Just seems like he just pushed some buttons that just made everything take off, and he's never looked back ever since. He scored 10 goals in the last 13 league games. Then he went to Salzburg. Then he just exploded in the Champions League after the summer break, and then he went to Dortmund, and now everyone knows him. So he's been very, very, very important. Ole reminded him of that in the interview we did on Friday, that he's sure that Erling remembers the chat they had and everything. So he's just trying to put out some small kind of bait, just to make to flirt a bit with Haaland. There's no doubt in the world that Ole wants to sign Erling to Man United. The problem is everyone else wants to do that as well.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a massive competition to sign him. And it's very difficult to say where he's going to end up, but I think he's going to make he's not going to make his choice by heart, I think. So that may be a disadvantage for Man United, because you would think that maybe Ole being his former manager and the strong Norwegian link that's there, that could incite him to go to Man United. At the same time, you saw that when he went to Borussia Dortmund, his choice was a very clever choice, obviously, because it's turned out the way it has. And I think he's going to have the same approach when making his next step. So Juventus is an alternative, Man City is an alternative, and Man City is a club that plays fantastic football, but they don't really have a striker for the next years when Sergio Aguero is leaving. So there's an open spot there. There's an open spot at Real Madrid where Karim Benzema is approaching the end of his career. There's an open spot in Barcelona as well. Bayern Munich, maybe he's the one to replace Robert Lewandowski. So he's sought after. Every single big club in the world wants to sign him, and that's going to be a massive test for Man United, because one thing was Bruno Fernandes. Signing him was, of course, a fantastic signing, but he wasn't sought after like Erling Haaland is. There wasn't every single club in Europe wanting to sign him at the time, so the competition wasn't that big. But now it's going to be massive, and they're going to have to make a very good pitch in order to convince him. And I don't have the answer, of course. No one has the answer right now. There's no advanced talks with anyone at the moment. I think Marco Rosa returning to not returning, but he's going to be the new manager at Borussia Dortmund. He's of course the former RB Salzburg manager, so he's worked with Haaland before. That's probably going to be an advantage for Borussia Dortmund when it comes to convincing Erling to stay in the summer. And we also know that he has a clause that kicks in from the summer 2022, so that would maybe make more sense for him to move then than to move now. But yeah, as Reese comments here, he's only 20 years old, and it's crazy. I did an interview with Haaland in December, and I think a very, very interesting point behind his development is that when he was a young player, when he was 12, 13 years old, he wasn't very big. He was very late in his development, and that made him that forced him to learn to use his head, use his mind, to be clever in order to get into the positions that could get him a goal, to find out how he should move. And his movement and everything is the same when you watch footage of him when he was 13 years old. It's just that he's grown so much. He's 50 kilos heavier. He's 20 centimeter taller, and he's just a machine. So he developed the mental approach to it with quite limited physical capabilities, and then he developed the physical side of it later. So that makes him like, you see many players that are very physical, but they haven't really needed to learn the movement and the cleverness and everything. But he learned that before he started growing, and that made him more complete than any other striker at the moment.
Yeah, look, I think at the moment, him and Harry Kane, and Lewandowski, if you talk about natural number 9s in world football, like I know there's players who play false 9, they play different forward roles, but when you look at natural strikers in world football, in terms of proper number 9s, Haaland, Kane, Lewandowski, the best in the world for me. I think when you look at the number 9s in world football at the moment, they would be the 3 best number 9s in world football at the minute. But absolutely, when you look at Haaland, I think his development over the past 2-3 seasons has been just second to none, really. And when you actually see how good he's been in terms of his time at Molde, then you look how he literally burst onto the scene with RB Salzburg. And then you look at him at Dortmund now, and the ridiculous numbers that he's pulling up at Dortmund now. Like, I have no doubts that Haaland will continue this. And as Reece said in the comments as well, like when you look at Joe Marco Rosa in terms of his development under Rosa, and now the fact he's going to be the new Borussia Dortmund manager, I think that's very important for Borussia Dortmund, maybe keeping a hold of Erling Haaland. If they be successful in Bundesliga and they keep Rosa, it may be a case where they may be able to hang on to him for maybe an extra season, depending on how he gets on there. But I think, for me, selfishly as a Manchester United fan, I'd love to see him at the club, because again, as I said, like, he's the real life version of a cheat code. Like, he's that good. Like, he's so clinical in front of goal. He's quick. He's good in the air. He's good at bringing players into play. I think for me, he has absolutely everything. He has the X factor. And if you had a player like Haaland up front being supplied by Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba, my God, like it'd just be it'd be sensational. So for me, look, I think getting Erling Haaland should be on the top of Ed Woodward's transfer list in the summer. Now, as you said, look, probably not this year, maybe the season after, but it's something that I think all Manchester United fans would love to see. Before we get to our next topic, we've commented in here from Reece. It's a question for yourself. Reece has said, based on how Haaland has played so far at the top level for Salzburg and Dortmund, plus his time at Molde, what do you think is Haaland's biggest strength and area to improve?
I think his biggest strength is his hunger, or his mentality. Definitely is his biggest strength, because he's so relentless, hungry, almost crazy about scoring goals. And that's, in my opinion, the most important trait you have to have as a striker. If you're going to be very, very successful, you need to be obsessed by scoring goals. And he is completely obsessed. It's the best thing he knows in the whole world, and he just does everything in order to have that goal scoring feeling as many times as possible. And that's just Yeah, I would say that is his biggest strength, and that tells a lot because he has so many strengths. And the other question is more difficult to answer because where can he improve? Of course, he can improve when it comes to maybe um, his aerial game, maybe his headers. He could become better there. We don't really often see him score goals on a corner, for example, with the head. So that's possibly an area to improve. But I would say it's so difficult to identify where he could be better because you wouldn't want to take anything away from his eagerness and his hunger and his obsessiveness in front of goal. I mean, you see he's running on towards the front post, towards the back post, behind the defensive line. He's just so good. And I don't know if you've noticed that when watching his games, but he never goes offside. He's just as you say, it's almost like a cheat code because he seems to be like programmed in order not to make a mistake, never miss a chance, never go offside, and always be at the right place at the right time. And it's scary to have a player that has that ability to be at the right place at the right time, and at the same time he has all those physical capabilities. He's not the most technical player, but he proved me wrong a couple of weeks ago as well when he just dribbled off five opponents, played the ball out on the wing, and then got it back and headed it in to goal. And I was thinking maybe that's two weak points with Haaland, his technique and also his headers, and then he just proved me wrong on both in a short amount of time. So it's difficult to answer the weakness question, but his strengths are massive, and I would say mentality is the most striking one.
Yeah, like look, I think for me, like again, as you said, like I don't think he has a weakness. I think like maybe heading, maybe he can get a few more heading goals. So I think we'd be nitpicking. I think at that, like I think when you consider how good he's been, and as Reece said, he's only 20 years of age. Like I know, like you look at other players of a similar age, only Kylian Mbappe. Like I think when you look at players like that who are at that level at that age, when you consider when he hits 24, 25, 26, the numbers he's going to pull up is going to be ridiculous. You're going to see the likes of him and Mbappe fighting for Ballon d'Or come after Messi and Ronaldo's time is finished. That's what you're going to see. You're going to see Haaland and you're going to see Mbappe both fighting for Ballon d'Or. That's what we're going to see because two of their numbers are ridiculous. I think what we could nearly end up seeing is one of them at Real Madrid, maybe one of them at Bayern Munich. I'm just throwing a scenario here. Haaland at Bayern Munich, Mbappe at Real Madrid, play each other in a Champions League final, both battling for Ballon d'Ors. Quite possible. It could really, really happen. I think one thing about Erling Haaland, again, I think at the age of 20, you mentioned it, is his mentality. To have that mentality at 20 years of age is fantastic. It's amazing. And to see he's driven to get better. And I think it's very, very interesting to see where he goes next. Selfishly, again, I say, I hope it's United. Realistically, probably not going to happen. You'll probably see him go to maybe a Bayern Munich. You might see him maybe go to Manchester City. Because I think if I take my Man United cap off for a moment and I actually put my football cap on, it's probably the move that makes the most sense when you consider, you mentioned Sergio Aguero is injury prone at the moment. He's not playing much football. Manchester City need a natural striker because I don't think I think Ilkay Gundogan has bailed Manchester City out in terms of his goal scoring this season because Jesus hasn't pulled up the numbers of other number 9s. And Kevin De Bruyne has been out. I think Ilkay Gundogan has been fantastic. So breaking from midfield, scoring goals this season. Raheem Sterling has chipped in review, so has Riyad Mahrez. But when you consider Manchester City at the moment, do I think they're lacking? And the thing about it is they're a fantastic team, but do I think they're lacking is a natural number 9? And you look at Erling Haaland, he has everything that a Manchester City number 9 would need. And again, his dad played for Manchester City. So again, there's a link there. And also you consider Pep Guardiola being one of the top coaches in world football. Many players like to learn under Pep Guardiola. Like imagine Erling Haaland learning from him. I think he could go he's there already. He could go off the scale. Like under Pep, I think he would. And then again, people have mentioned it. Liverpool could be another destination because but Roberto Firmino has done fantastic work as a number 9, but considering they won't win the league this year, I think we all know at this moment in time, as much as it makes me happy, but realistically, it's not going to happen. They're probably not going to win the league. They're going to want to make a little rebuild as well because they've had the same squad at level for 3 years continuously. They're going to want to maybe get in some reinforcements. Salah, Mane, and Firmino all coming towards their 30s now. So again, maybe they might go in for an Erling Haaland. You just never know. The world of football, we have different stories could pop up in a couple of weeks' time that we couldn't have imagined. So I suppose it's very interesting to see kind of where Erling Haaland goes. And me for sure, I'll definitely be tracking wherever it is because, again, he's just a fantastic footballer. And again, to have that mentality at 20 years of age is just absolutely great to see. Another striker that was one of the best ever strikers in world football, especially for Manchester United, was Wayne Rooney. And Wayne Rooney has recently retired at Derby County, and now he's taken over as their permanent manager. Looking at kind of Wayne Rooney's football career, obviously Manchester United, England's all-time top goal scorer, and just a fantastic player, fantastic professional, and stayed consistent for many, many years at Manchester United and everything, and also internationally. Do you maybe think Wayne Rooney has all the ingredients to become a top manager in world football?
Tough one. That's a very tough one. One thing that goes, one thing that's an advantage for it. He was of course coached by Sir Alex Ferguson, which has produced a lot of managers, and he was of course a smart player. And yeah, maybe he could. Maybe he could. I haven't. It's always very difficult because sometimes it's the ones you don't really expect to be to go and become a manager who really become the good managers, and sometimes the ones you thought would be fantastic managers don't really turn out to be that. So I think it's very, very, very difficult to predict if he's going to be a good manager, but it's interesting to see him go that way. And of course, this is a boy who's been obsessed by football since a very young age and completely in the game. So he's got massive experience, I would absolutely expect him to do good things, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think for me, there's always that little glimmer of hope for me that he goes on and becomes a top manager, because if he can be anything like he was on the pitch, it'd just be great to see. And I think when you look at players such as himself, Lampard obviously unfortunately been sacked by Chelsea. Gerrard is obviously doing a great job at Rangers at the minute. And you see there's other kind of young managers up and coming. I think even Brendan Rodgers is still kind of young in the game. He's doing a fantastic job at Leicester City too. And you see obviously on the other side then in Germany, Nagelsmann is doing a great job at RB Leipzig. I think that has to be highlighted. They play a fantastic brand of football. And you look at Marco Rose, who's recently after going to Borussia Dortmund. There's so many young managers up and coming, and we're seeing a new generation of managers. And I think I just love Wayne Rooney to kind of break into that. Even if he goes to Derby and then goes to somebody else after that, and we see kind of the emergence of another former Manchester United player get into the world of management. I think it'd be fantastic to see. But again, as you said, it's kind of hard to see at the moment because we've seen many top players get management jobs and it hasn't worked out. So maybe it's a bit premature to probably say that he's going to be a top manager. But I think I just hold that glimmer of hope because he was one of my favourite all-time players at Manchester United. And so I kind of would hold him in high regard. In terms of a player we mentioned on at the start of the show, Bruno Fernandes. Anyone who watches this channel, anyone who watches podcasts, any other podcasts I'm on, they will know that he is my favourite player at the moment. In terms of his mentality, in terms of his quality, in terms of his leadership by example on the pitch. Ollie absolutely robbed Sporting Lisbon, £47 million. That was an absolute steal. That was if anything comes out of Ollie's tenure, I think that's probably the best thing he's done at the moment in terms of bringing in Bruno for that level, for that price tag, when you consider how good he is. But when you consider Bruno Fernandes' overall impact in the last kind of 12 months at Manchester United in terms of his goals, assists, and his overall kind of helping the mentality change within the dressing room, do you maybe think in this last 12 months that he's had a Cantona-esque kind of effect on Manchester United when you consider his overall impact?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, time always makes people bigger legends than they were at the moment, and of course, Cantona is one of the greats at Man United, and you maybe try not to compare too many people to him and everything, but when you look at the stats, it's just incredible. I didn't think it was possible to make a signing like that, because one thing is when you spend 150 million pounds on a superstar from another superstar club, and then it turns out to be a success. Of course it does, because it's one of the best players in the world. It's a different story when you get a player playing in a secondary league like the Portuguese one, and you get him for a moderate amount of money, and he just explodes completely and just changes the whole face of a team in the way that Bruno Fernandes has done. I think it's incredible. I haven't seen anything like it. I think Virgil van Dijk would be the other signing that has had a similar impact to a big team, and that obviously made Liverpool take the step from being a very, very good Premier League club and becoming the best football team in the world for 2 years. And the impact of Bruno Fernandes is similar. It's just that Man United were in a worse position before he came in than what Liverpool were before Van Dijk came in. But I think it's just very, very impressive. And I've seen people actually pointing out or talking about Bruno Fernandes as something negative for Ole. They're saying, yeah, the results are good, but he's too dependent on Bruno Fernandes. Well, he's the one who signed Bruno Fernandes, so it should be a massive credit to Solskjaer that he's been able to make a signing like that, because the biggest problem at Man United has been the transfer business for the last year has been horrible, and since Ole came in, they've succeeded in a lot more transfers, and he's the best example of them. Of course, it's just been a joy to watch, and I think he's now the player with the highest frequency of goals and assists in the Premier League history, which is just amazing considering he came in, of course, as I said, from Portugal, had never played in the Premier League before. He adapted immediately, started producing goals, assists, started changing the mentality in the dressing room. I think he's pulling the other ones with him, and I think he's changing the atmosphere in the dressing room. I think he's changing the tone on the pitch, the way they speak to each other. I think he can be demanding, of course, but I think he's just been pure vitamin to this squad, and he obviously, when talking about Erling Haaland, if you compare the Man United team now with the way they played 1 year ago before Bruno Fernandes came in, you must say it looks very much more attractive to be a striker at Man United than it was a year ago. So playing with Bruno Fernandes should be massive inspiration for the players who are there, and it should be also quite a big motivation for players who could come to Man United to know that they could be served by such a wonderful playmaker. And he's just exceeded all my expectations. I know there were certain doubts before he came in, but he's
blowing them all out of the water.
Yeah, he's really been one of the best players in the world for the last year, and that's a massive achievement when he came directly from Portugal. So yeah, I'm just blown away by his impact and excited for the future.
Yeah, I think when you look at the impact he's made, he's done unbelievable. Like I remember, there's one of my fellow panelists here on the weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast on Devil's Advocate, Shane, massive Manchester United fan, and we were chatting well before this podcast even existed. Like this, we only started this podcast back in late April last year in 2020, and a couple of months before Bruno signed, it was in the summer transfer window, and when there was little kind of murmurs coming out that Manchester United were looking at Bruno. I remember saying to him at the time, I was like, "This is a good player at Sporting Lisbon." Now, look, I never could have imagined what he would have achieved at United in terms of how good he was. But I said, "Look, there's a creative midfield player at Sporting Lisbon, Bruno Fernandes. You were linked with him. I really like us to sign him." And I remember on transfer deadline day in September 2019. Manchester United, we didn't get him. We were linked with like Paulo Dybala and stuff like that. And I wasn't kind of happy with that. I kind of wanted Bruno to come in because I seen kind of how good he was in terms of his form at Sporting. But obviously I couldn't have imagined why he'd be when he signed for United. And I remember being really kind of, upset. No, I won't say upset, but I wasn't happy that we didn't get our man at the time. And he's also like people. It's quite known. Bruno said this himself. He was quite close to signing for Tottenham Hotspur, that summer as well. So it's just as well Manchester United got him, because if Tottenham got him, we might see Tottenham were higher up in the league. Which for me, we have a couple of Tottenham fans on this podcast. Wouldn't be the best of time for me if that happened. But yeah, look, he's been fantastic, and I think when you look at the effect that he's had on this United team, it's been second to none. And for me, he's had a Cantona-esque type effect where he's really kind of he instills confidence, he instills class. When he walks onto that pitch, people might say he's a high risk player, but when you're at the top level, you need high risk players. You need someone who's going to take that chance, who's going to take a risk. Because I think you said it earlier on, we lacked creativity last season at certain parts, and it let us down. But the minute he came in, you've seen a drop for a hat how much quality he had. And you look at the goal scoring ability now. People talk about penalties and all of this nonsense. I'm just going to point it out again. I pointed out earlier on in the podcast months ago. He's more open play goals than penalties. So I think this penalty kind of nonsense that people talk about, again, is just agendas. We all know that happens in football. But I think he's just, again, is such a fantastic professional. And I think he's someone for me who can definitely even get to bigger heights. And I think Manchester United have done well signing from Sporting Lisbon. There's another certain young 18-year-old came over from Sporting Lisbon and turned out to be one of the greatest footballers in all time, and Cristiano Ronaldo. We signed Nani, who actually was a quite decent player for the club as well, from large parts of his United career. So I don't think Sporting Lisbon is a bad place to shop. I think if United are looking for any young up and coming players, it might be a destination where Manchester United maybe should look maybe more often in terms of the Portuguese league, because we do very well in terms of signing players from there.
Big shoes to fill though if you come in from Sporting now and your references are Cristiano Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes. It's going to be massive expectations.
Yeah, 100%. I think any player coming from there now could be looking at that and they're going to be like, oh my God, like, what are we going to do? But just the final question for you in terms of the podcast today. First of all, I've really enjoyed having you on. We've had a fantastic conversation. It's kind of great to hear your perspective and kind of your experiences in journalism and Manchester United, and kind of speaking about Haaland as well. And it's great to get your insight. But in terms, just the last question, you've covered Manchester United quite a while now, and you follow football for quite a long time. In terms of your time covering Manchester United, what would be your favourite memory in terms of that time covering Manchester United? And second of all, just a follow-up question, in terms of your overall football, what would be your favourite memory in football overall?
Well, I would say no doubt at all my biggest memory, greatest memory from Man United perspective was the PSG game, because I was at the Parc des Princes that night when Rashford scored the penalty, and I remember the atmosphere in the press conference room afterwards with Ole. There was just this because that was from a Norwegian perspective as well. It was just a big. It was a big sports history moment for Norway as well, sitting there with a Norwegian manager in the room who just did something he never. I mean, he did say he believed in it, but I mean, no one believed in that, and then it happened, and that's when I understood as well that it was going to change my life as well, because I understood that now there's no chance they can't give him the permanent job. And that of course made me stay in Manchester for another year, and it's shaped a lot of my professional life as well for the last 2 years. So that was just an incredible moment. It felt just unreal when it happened. I was sitting in the press stand and just watching French people around me just lose their minds, because no one of course expected that. It was just, it's just one of those moments when football just shows you how big it can be, how big of an impact it can have when you see a fully packed Parc des Princes just go completely silent. And just that was a fascinating moment. And then football overall, I would say I covered the World Cup in 2018 in Russia, and I was born in Switzerland, and I lived in France for the first years of my life, and I've been over there. I have a very strong connection to France. So growing up, there were my favorite national team. Zinedine Zidane was my favorite player. And just being able, as a journalist, for my first tournament ever, to follow the way I covered all their games from the last 16 until the final, and of course they ended up winning it. And afterwards, I interviewed all the likes of Mbappe, Pogba, Griezmann, Lloris, and so on. And just that was just an incredible experience for me. So that would be top of my list overall. But the night in Paris isn't far away from that either.
Yeah, I think that night in Paris, my God, I remember I was working till I think the game was on in work in the first half, and I remember I was just losing my mind. See us go to get them 2 early goals, and it was just inconceivable. Not many teams go to Paris and get a result there. And I remember getting home. I remember I finished work literally on half time, so I sprinted home. I mean, I sprinted. I was gone. I got home in a rush, and then to see us go on and win the way we did in such dramatic fashion, if really for that night, along with when we beat Manchester City in the last game before the lockdown, them 2 moments for me under Ollie really felt like we had our club back. The PSG moment, and when we beat Manchester City last season at Old Trafford in the last minute when Scott McTominay scored that goal from the halfway line. Them 2 moments for me really felt we had our club back. And that for me, I think one thing Ollie has done in terms of when he's come is he's given us great moments. And again, them 2 moments to me, I hold in really high regard in terms of post-Sir Alex Ferguson, in terms of having our club back. And look, overall football memory for me, we win the Champions League in 2008. I lived in a household when I was young, full of Liverpool fans. So we watched the Champions League together, all of us in the sitting room that night. And obviously they were all shouting for Chelsea. They were all supporting Chelsea that night, and being Liverpool fans. And I remember when John Terry was stepping up to take a penalty, to take the supposed winning penalty. I remember I was only 11 at the time. I was crying. I seen John Terry come up take the penalty. I remember I had the head down, and I remember hearing the ball smacked off the post, and the commentary by Clive Tilsley in the background, and saying John Terry's missed. It was just that moment I knew Man United were going to go on and win the game, that they're going to win the penalty shootout. And then to see kind of how Sir Alex built that team in '99, built a team in 2008. What he done is he oversaw so many different squads, and he kind of knew when to adapt. And for me, this 2008 team was peak Manchester United for me. And to see us win the Champions League, that's my favorite memory in football now. But obviously I've been to games and I've seen us win trophies as well. But for me, in terms of overall favorite memory in football, to see us win the biggest competition in club football, being the Champions League, I think that for me, that would be my favorite memory. But look, again, there's many other good memories hopefully to come. And I think my favorite ever memory in football would probably be the moment I get to step back in the stadium after this global pandemic. I think that's probably going to be my favorite moment, just to take in the overall match day experience and just to interact with fans again and see the players. And I quoted this on Twitter the other day. I just cannot wait to see Bruno Fernandes play live in person. I just cannot wait to see that. That is going to be just a fantastic experience. And again, just to be in the Stretford end and just hear the United fans sing the songs and experience my favourite club in the world, I think that goes without saying. But we just come to the end of the show here today, and just before we end, I'd just like to thank Arilas again for coming on the show here this morning. And fantastic show here today. I really enjoyed speaking to you today, and again, just fantastic insight in terms of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's reign and kind of your experiences covering football and looking into Haaland as well. That is great to get that that knowledge and that information for yourself. So I'm absolutely grateful for you for coming on, and I really enjoyed it today. And just with regards to where our viewers can catch you in terms of your work, and where can our viewers catch you?
So you can follow me on Twitter. That's Arilasos, ARILASOS, and most of my content is on there. Especially now the exclusive Ole Gunnar Solskjaer interview that we translated exceptionally for in English, so you can read my work in English. Most of it is usually in Norwegian. It can be translated easily with Google Translate, but that one is translated by myself in English. So you can go read those 12,000 signs about Ole, where I would say he's maybe a bit more open than he's usually in English, because he's speaking, of course, in his mother tongue and in Norwegian. So fascinating insight from Solskjaer that you should definitely go check out.
Yeah, definitely do check out that interview. I had a look at it there last night, and I must say, fantastic work. And do keep it up. You're doing fantastic work yourself, and I've no doubt when the stadiums are back that you'll be working hard, and you'll be more than ready to go back to Old Trafford and to cover all things Manchester United. So
thanks for having me.
No problem at all. And just for our viewers, we are back live tonight at 7 p.m. Sean Maroney is joined by the panel from the London Lowdown, our London Club show, and it will be live at 7 p.m. just covering all things Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, and they will be looking into the Champions League and the Europa League as well this week. So do catch that show live at 7 p.m. And as always, do like, share and subscribe to the channel. A lot of great content coming this week as well. And look, as always, we will be back this Friday with the Manchester United show, Devil's Advocate, where we'll be looking at Manchester United versus Newcastle United. And we do have a member from a Newcastle fan channel coming on this Friday to join me to talk about Newcastle United too. So do check that out. But as always, do tune in next week to the weekly Armchair Kickoff, and we'll be back.